guys are doing good. Last time we were here, last time we were live. We had our cycling, the Kenyan Cycling Forum organized at the Baraza Media Lab. The numbers were good. Over 40 of you presented themselves for the forum. That was so good of you guys. The discussions were so nice. We are working on the report. We're almost done. For those who are asking why you're taking long, you should know that the conversation was so lengthy, so you'll have to understand us. Okay, and today we are up and going with our podcasts, and today we have a beautiful guest. Most of you know her. Most of you have seen her on the roads. I'll allow her introduce herself.
All right. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Berber. What am I now? Am I a Dutch cyclist or a Kenyan cyclist? A Mzungu cyclist?
You want to be a Kenyan cyclist.
I am, yes. I'm a Wafinyi.
Oh, okay, yeah, Mfinyi. You know what Mfinyi means?
Cyclist, right?
Yeah. Fast cyclist.
Oh, fast cyclist.
Yeah,
all right.
On a bike, we just call him Mfinyi.
I'm Mfinyi.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Maybe introduce yourself on basis of when you started cycling. Because we've seen in your category, you're still beating some young bloods. You're doing some perfect job on the bike. I know you're a mentor to some, so maybe tell us when you started cycling, because I understand you also do triathlon. So maybe you'll tell us the whole background of
all right. Good. So I started cycling like this way only recently, sort of cycling competitively. Of course, being born in the Netherlands and going to school, I would bike, but just on sort of my commuter bicycle. I think I was riding a bicycle from when I was 2 or 3 years old, but nothing serious, and I actually hated it. And my mom and my sister and my brother, they were all into road cycling, and I didn't quite understand it. And then they would put on these like weird shorts with like a chamois in it, and I was like, that's not comfortable. And they wouldn't wear any underwear underneath, and I was like, I don't want to have to do anything with that.
Okay.
So that was their thing, and I quite didn't understand, why they would go out and like do 5-hour rides. I was like, that's suffering. Why won't you do that? So I had no sort of connection with the whole cycling at all. And then at some point, I think when I was mid-20s, I was doing my PhD. And, doing a PhD is a very lonely thing. You have to write your dissertation, and that takes 3-4 years. And it's just... you need something on the side. So I think that at some point my mom decided to get me a secondhand road bike just to get me out of the door and away from that computer and typing my dissertation all the time, and just to get some fresh air. And so I actually started enjoying it. I did a little cycling class, or like a road cycling course with the university. And the guy who was doing it, the trainer, he actually saw some potential in me. But then I had a semester abroad. So I flew from the Netherlands to Berkeley and stayed there for a semester. So then kind of, that one semester that I picked up road cycling a little was gone. Then I was in Berkeley, and I wasn't cycling much anymore. So I never really did anything with this trainer's advice for me to keep cycling back then when I was doing my PhD, because I came back and other things happened, life happened. I was finishing up my PhD. I was applying for jobs outside. I got a job in DC, in Washington, DC. And so sort of, I never really did much with cycling when I was still in the Netherlands. And then in 2013, when I moved to DC, some of my coworkers were getting like a purse with their first salary, or maybe a nice coat. I did start feeling like I was interested in cycling, and so I actually got a road bike with my first salary. And I think that's where it started, but it was all very recreational, and so I would bike down the bike trails to breweries or to vineyards and then meet friends there, and then we'd have fun, and then we'd throw my bike in the back of the car, and then we'd drive back. Or if I had sort of more adventurous friends, they would ride with me, and we would sort of ride back after drinking a few too many beers or glasses of wine. So that was a lot of fun, but it was just a lot of fun. That's how I was approaching it, and I wasn't doing anything competitive. And I only in 2017 I did my first sprint triathlon, and I started training with a bit more structure because I had a training plan. But if there was a bike training in my training plan that said, okay, do 5 times 10-minute intervals, I wouldn't do that. I would just ride my own pace and try and get the QOMs on Strava, and sort of see how hard I could go all the time. So there was still very little structure in a way in my training, because my training was just go as hard as you can all the time. That was my training. So yeah, I only started really kind of cycling the way I cycle now in 2017 with more structured training since 2020. So it hasn't even been that long. And it's a pity that now I'm in the veteran category. Turned 40 this year, so I moved up a category. It's a pity. I would have loved to kind of have discovered this earlier in life, and start cycling in my 20s. And when that trainer in university was like, hey, you need to keep doing this, that I hadn't just that I had listened to him more.
Okay, so that was your very first journey of cycling. So tell us about your cycling journey, maybe into Kenya, or maybe I don't know, maybe you started in some other country in Kenya, then in East Africa or Africa, then came into Kenya. Maybe tell us your cycling journey in Kenya, how it started, or how you continued with your cycling journey in Kenya.
Yeah, I think it's actually quite an interesting story. In 2019, I was training for my first Ironman distance triathlon, and I needed to bike, but I was also traveling to Ethiopia and Kenya. And I had to keep up with my bike training. I didn't want to lose my bike fitness, and I was gone for 3 weeks. So I first was in Ethiopia for about a week, and then I was going to Kenya. And in Ethiopia, I thought, I Googled, okay, where can I bike in Addis? And I found sort of people talking about how they were biking up in Toto Mountain. And so I was like, okay, I want to do that. But then I wasn't quite sure how to arrange it, and I looked around a little further, and there were not really any tour organizations that would arrange where you could rent bikes. So then I just spoke to people in the hotel about it, saying, I'd like to bike up in Toto Mountain. Can you help me find a bike? And then they were like, well, you need an escort. So they put me in touch with this guy who knew where I could, off the street, rent a bike. And he was following me on my crappy mountain bike that I had just rented, with the gears falling off, and the lightest gear, of course, not working, even though I was going uphill. But he did help me arrange that bike, and so I was biking and I was happy, and he was following me in the car to make sure I was safe. So I did that, and then I was telling a colleague over dinner who lives in Kenya about the adventure I had had that day. And he was like, oh, well, if you're coming to Kenya, then you definitely need to talk to Rakesh. And so he put me in touch with him, and then I rented in Kenya a road bike through Rakesh, and I was biking with back then I think it was Bicali Adventures. They had the team, and a few of the guys joined me on a ride, and we did a ride through the tea plantations. And it was actually really nice, and I was kind of impressed after the whole in Toto mountain bike experience. I was impressed with, one, the quality of the road bike that I was on, and two, also the tarmac and the scenery. And I had not imagined that in a busy city like Nairobi, that I would be able to just kind of half an hour outside of the city be able to ride my bike so freely. And so that really made me think that, maybe I could actually live in Kenya and move to Nairobi. And I had two big projects for work that were starting up in Kenya at that time. And I spoke to my manager about it, and I said, hey, what if I move to Kenya? What if I get outposted? Because, I have these two big projects there, and I didn't mention this to my manager, but I also had just discovered that I could ride my bike in Nairobi. And so then, it all came together very quickly. And in 2020, I moved to Kenya for a bit, because then the pandemic happened. I was back with my partner, with Larry, in Southern California during the pandemic, but I kept checking the Facebook, the Kenya Cycling Facebook, and I saw that all these races were being organized, and I had so much FOMO. I had done a race in 2019 when I came to visit for a week, so I had told Rakesh, okay, I'm going to be back in Kenya that week, and he said, oh, there's actually an uphill time trial that Zuzu Bike Shop were organizing, and so he said, you should join for the time trial. And so I was very excited. I did the time trial, took a wrong turn. The idea was the course had no turns, and Zuzu had said, just keep following the road, I thought, but apparently it was just keep going straight, and I had followed the road, and that involved the turn. And so after 35 kilometers, I was like, there's no finish line here. I'm by myself. And I called Rakesh and sent him my location, and he was like, yeah, you biked 26 kilometers in the wrong direction. So get back on my bike, rush back. And so I didn't have a high ranking in the results. And I felt like I had something still to make up for that race, and to show what I'm worth, and that I could do so much better. I was having so much FOMO seeing that in Kenya bike races were still being held kind of through the pandemic. And so I was really happy in July 2021 that I could finally really move to Kenya.
Okay. And now that you turned competitive, I think it's okay to call it pro. Yeah, because for you it's pro, it's pro. How have you managed to maybe do your trainings and stuff on the Kenyan roads, especially you being a woman?
Yeah, that's not easy. And I think half a year ago, I was a lot more positive about it than these days, because there's really been, it seems like, an increase in crime on the roads the last couple of months. With cyclists on the Southern Bypass getting attacked. And the Southern Bypass was kind of my training terrain, because you can just keep going. So I do loop Southern Bypass, Western Bypass, especially on the weekends with my time trial bike, because there's not a lot of other places where you can train with a time trial bike. You just need a road where there's no cars zipping around you, or bodas or matatu stopping right in front of you. So that's actually been really tough. So what I do is definitely all my weekday sessions, I do them on the trainer, on the Tux nowadays. And I have a good training setup. I have a fan, pretty powerful fan, that I bought the first day I moved to Nairobi in July 2021, and I bought it from Carrefour, and they were asking me, so you mean you're buying a heater? And I was like, no, I'm buying a fan. And they were looking at me, and I was wearing shorts, and they were like, this Mzungu is crazy. She's fresh off the boat. She doesn't understand that this is cold weather and that you shouldn't be buying a fan. But so I have a good setup. I have a big TV. I use an app called Ruvi. And that's really nice because it has sort of a virtual reality, but the courses look really real. And so I might pick a course that is, say that will take me an hour and a half if I have a session that is an hour and a half. And so, it makes me feel like I'm riding in a real environment, and I have something to look at, beautiful scenery, and then I have cheesy pop music to keep me kind of motivated. So that's how I survive my indoor sessions. And sometimes I do it on the weekend, 3-4 hour, my longer rides. Sometimes I do them on the trainer, and then it can be 3 or 4 hours. And people are like, how do you do it? But somehow with Ruvi and with the setup that I have, it actually goes by pretty quickly.
Okay.
Or what I might do is I might do a portion of my ride out in the tea plantations, but then sometimes I have to finish sort of with a build and build strong, and then right away after that start running, because as a triathlete I need to practice my transitions from cycling to running. And then I might just sort of halfway the ride get back into the city and then do the rest of the ride indoors, so that I can do those proper intervals indoors.
Okay.
And I think a lot of it, it's a lot of preparation, saying, okay, I'm gonna ride this weekend, I'm gonna ride with this person, I'm not gonna ride alone. We're going to do this course. There's a few hills here where I can do those efforts that I need to do. So yeah, outdoor riding, I think definitely it requires planning. It is possible, but it requires planning, because you don't want to go alone, and you do need to know the course that you want to ride.
Yeah. Okay, that was on cycling itself. You are a triathlete, right?
Yeah.
I know it takes a lot of training, like to balance, because maybe you have to do all those swim, run, bike in one single day. How do you go about it? Like, how is your schedule on a daily basis on your training days?
So I usually have 2 things per day. So I might have a swim and a bike, or a bike and a run, or a swim in strength training. It's usually 2 things every day. Sometimes 3 things every day, but then one of those will be more like a recovery session. So I might have a recovery swim, or I might have a recovery ride.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's usually 2 things a day. I work with a lot of people in the US, which is also where my organization I work with is headquartered. So yeah, I have a lot of meetings later in the day, and that means that I usually start my day a little bit later. I might start work at 9:30 or 10 or so I can get my workouts in, usually in the morning. And if I can't, then I really have to put a big block in my calendar saying, no, I need to make sure I get that second session of the day, that I do that in the evening, because yeah, I'm balancing. So you're saying I'm a pro cyclist, but I am balancing work and cycling and the other parts of triathlon training. And so, that's how I do it. And just being efficient with time. I might not stay as long at a party, go to bed early because I have a session the next day. I might triple check that an appointment is really happening so that I don't lose time. I will actually, I came here writing, not just because it's the Wafinyi podcast, but also because this way I can beat traffic, because going back, it's going to be probably 3:30, 4 by the time we finish. I don't want to sit in traffic at that hour. I'm just going to use my bike and zip through, and then I'll be home in no time, and I can make use of my time more efficiently.
Okay. And do you cycle to work? Or
sometimes I do, on Waiaki Way. It's quite the adventure. I just have to be sort of head on a swivel, constantly looking at what's happening. I'm aware of the matatus behind me, in front of me, next to me, everything that's happening. I really try and have that full situational awareness when I'm biking down on Waiaki Way, going home. So my work is out in Uthiru. So I actually have Waiaki kind of coming down, going back. Kind of traffic is going out, and I'm coming down. So,
Oh, okay. So, and how have you coped with the matatus on the road? Because I know matatu was a total chaos in Nairobi. Like, from the first time you started cycling on the highway.
They're bad. The matatus are bad. They just do what they want. But the matatus I can read. I know, okay, they're probably going to offload some passengers now, so they're going to swirl to the left, so let me start moving to the right. So I've learned to read the matatus. The thing that really drives me mad is the bodas. They are just so unpredictable. And in fact, 3 weeks before my main race this year, Ironman World Champs, I got hit by a boda that just appeared from nowhere, from behind a car, into the lane where I was riding. And there was nothing that I could have possibly done to prevent this other than, not cycling or cycling in the middle of the road. But it's I thought cycling on the side of the road is safer than in the middle of the road. But apparently it's not, because in the middle of the road I have the overview of what's happening around me, and on the side of the road I can't see what's coming from behind the cars.
Yeah.
But yeah, I bruised a rib, and it really derailed, my training. I couldn't run, I couldn't swim, because it was just too painful. And that was 3 weeks before my main race, so that was quite panic. And I did the race, and I still had a good result, but I was like under painkillers. And I dropped down from second to fourth place at some point in the last lap of the run, just because I had so much pain breathing. So yeah, the bodas is really, if I could pay money to make the bodas disappear, I think I would do that.
Okay, because I know it's really hard, even for normal day-to-day commuters. Yeah, it's so difficult cycling on the Kenyan roads, matatus, bodas. It's like they see us as the lesser beings on the roads.
And then you have bike lanes, and you're like, great, we have bike lanes.
Yeah.
But then they take the poles down so that they can go there as the matatus, and the bodas use the bike lanes. And in fact, coming here, I had a few encounters with bodas where they were just, in my way, and I was on the bike lane, but they were also using the bike lane going in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And they're just not moving out of the way for a cyclist. They're just feeling like that lane is theirs.
Yeah.
If they want to be in the road is theirs. If they want to be on the sidewalk, that's theirs. If they want to be in the bike lane, it's theirs.
They have that entitlement. Okay. Also, these cycling lanes, they are not like complete cycling lanes, because it will be okay. You're starting on the cycling lane, then reaching at some point to find someone selling maybe furniture, or a car is parked.
Yeah. Or there might just be a ditch.
Yeah.
Or the cycling lane just ends entirely, and you have to jump over a ditch to get back onto the road.
Yeah, on the other side. Oh, that's
infrastructure could be improved a lot, and it's a pity. I thought that they were building bike lanes on Limuru Road, but then I was driving there the other day, just this past weekend or this past week. And it seems like they've widened the road, but there's not really a bike lane, which is really a missed opportunity. Yeah, because that's a tricky part to ride if you're going up and down.
Yeah, they really should put cyclists into consideration and put this, especially the Limuru side. Yeah, they really should. Then maybe we talk about the races. We'll start with the international races.
Right.
You've talked about your biggest race this year, which it was so unfortunate. You got into an accident. So how was it, or our other races prior to that? Like your preparations. Do you always go to these races fully prepared, like?
If it's an international race and I'm traveling for it, it definitely is an important race for me. I want to do my very best and just, test myself against some of the others in the world. So I definitely train towards those. And, that involves having a build up towards the race, kind of getting more race-specific sessions as we get closer to the race. So in the off-season, I might be doing more short, high-intensity sessions that are, not taking up as much time, combined with maybe some playful, just long rides where it doesn't matter what I do. But if we get closer to race day, then it becomes more race specific. And if I'm having a half Ironman where I need to bike 90 kilometers and run a half marathon, and most of it will be sort of in that tempo and threshold zone, then I will be training sort of in the tempo and threshold zone.
Okay.
And durations, won't be as short anymore of the intervals as they are in the off season when I'm doing the spiky stuff that is meant to build speed.
Okay.
And if I'm training for an Ironman, I'll have more of these endurance and intervals where I just need to keep my heart rate nice and steady, not go too high, nothing too hard. So the sessions become kind of more tailored towards the race as I get closer to the race. And then usually I start my taper around 1.5 weeks to 1 week before these races.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I just hope to show up on race day and be the best I can be. And for instance, in Nice, in the World Championship this year, that's what I did. I knew I have this bruised rib to deal with. I had good pain. I knew I had good painkillers. I had an extra dose of painkillers in my nutrition, so I had a little bottle of water with nutrition in it and a painkiller in it for during the run. So I was, I had prepared myself as good as possible. It was a course that suits me very well with a lot of climbing on the bike. And the conditions of the day were quite good, not too hot. And I feel like especially for the swim and the bike and the first part of the run, I really sort of was the best person I could be. And then afterwards, sort of on the last lap of the run, I had to walk a lot. And afterwards, I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have walked. But people are also telling me, well, if it's painful to breathe, then, you also need to listen to the signals that your body is sending you. And I've had other races this year, especially earlier on in the season, where I really, I really feel like I got into that zone where you're just constantly going, and where if you're looking back, it's not clear where you could have been faster. So for instance, there was Ironman Hamburg, that was the European Championship, where I was the first female age grouper to pass the finish line. I don't think there's parts where I could, maybe if I had like somebody running up close behind me and that I had to sort of speed up to win, maybe that would have given me a push. But I feel like that race, I really did what I had to do. Like there's no mistakes or anything that I feel like I made, or that I threw the towel in the ring, gave up or anything. And the same, I had a really good race in Italy, in Venice, earlier this year. That was a half Ironman. And I had a PB on the swim, on the bike, and on the run. Like I had never run that fast. So that was really nice as well. Ironman Rwanda I did this year too, the half Ironman. Swim, I feel like I had a solid swim. I had a very steady bike. Very good performance on the bike. And in fact, I didn't notice, but I was second person overall coming off the bike. So there was only one guy doing the triathlon ahead of me, and the rest of the field was all behind. I didn't notice, and so I feel like on the run, had I known that, maybe I would have pushed a little bit more, because I could see that the next girl was like 20 minutes behind me, and then you might not have that motivation to like run as hard. And so there were sections on the run where I was like, oh, this hill is so steep, I'm gonna walk. And it was really hot and stuff. But maybe if I knew that I could have gotten second overall, and beat all but just one guy, maybe that would have been a bit more motivation for me to keep running. But I didn't realize that I was still in contention for like overall podium. And so, I mean, still, I finished third overall. So still really happy with the result. I only dropped down one spot. But if I had known, I think I would have pushed a little harder. So that's a bit about the international races.
Oh, interesting. And which race did you have your best performance?
Internationally? I think
since you started the triathlon, maybe Ironman and stuff.
Well, I think definitely my best ever Ironman will have been Ironman Hamburg. And that was also European Championship, and so it's really nice, to take that title, to take that back home. And I feel like that's definitely been my best performance in an Ironman, both in terms of times, but that's not fair because Hamburg is a flat course, but also just in terms of my attitude, and especially on the run. In the marathon, it's very easy to kind of, have the wheels come off and to start walking as it gets harder. And in Hamburg, I was just staying in the moment and constantly thinking, I'm not focusing on pace. I'm not focusing on where I am or how far the next person is behind me. I'm just staying in the moment. I'm doing my own race. I was just thinking of how can I take care of myself now so that my race is the best possible race that I can have.
Yeah.
And so I was constantly thinking, listening to my body. Do I need more nutrition? Do I need more hydration? What should I do now? Should I take salts? Should I take plain water? You know, I was constantly kind of thinking of how do I take care of myself?
Yeah.
And yeah, I was able to set a marathon time of 3:23, which was my PB on the marathon in an Ironman. Like I've never done it that fast. I've always been around the 3.5 hours. So I was really happy with that. Half Ironman, I would say my best performance ever. Might have been Ironman Rwanda last year,
Okay.
where I really ran fast, had a very strong run, considering how hilly that course is. And people were afterwards telling me that I was running around with such a big smile. So yeah, I was really enjoying it. But I was also digging deep, and I was properly sore the next day. Yeah.
Okay, then now back to the Kenyan cycling
Yes.
races. Yeah, like you came in, started on a good step. Going forward, people started knowing you. Baba, like how do you feel was the reception? Like,
Yeah, it took quite an interesting turn. You know, if I think back of how during the pandemic with FOMO, I was looking at the Kenya cycling webpage, and then I got the chance to participate in those races. That was actually really nice. I want to mention this, that it's really nice that in Kenya anybody can sign up for cycling races, because in the US you can't just show up for a cycling race. And they don't have as many time trials and road races. Most of it is crits. So I also understand that not everybody can do it, because in crits it's a whole different style of racing, and you need to be able to trust that people know how to ride in a peloton. But yeah, in the US you start in a category system where you start at Cat 5, and then you kind of, by earning points, you can make your way up, and only then certain races become available to you. So it's really nice that in Kenya that I could just sign up, and so that felt very welcoming. And also, I mean, people were very friendly from the beginning, and I never felt like people were like, you know, sort of jealous or having negative feelings about me winning the races. Everybody seemed like very enthusiastic, and the girls seemed to be really happy that I was actually in the overall rankings doing really well, and that men started getting afraid that they would get like dropped by me. So that was actually quite fun. So yeah, I think that definitely the first 2-3 years here. I also love that the cycling race series was established. I feel that really gives something to motivate me throughout the season to keep showing up for the cycling races. So also this year I've done, I think, a serious number of them, and I think with a race that we did last Sunday in Gatamayu, I might be back at my usual spot in the cycling race series. So yeah, that was a bit of an upsetting experience, a little demotivating. So I was planning to do the gravel race in Hell's Gate. I think it's Safari Gravel. And I had seen on the website that East African residents were eligible for prize money. And I'm an East African resident. I wasn't doing it for the money, not at all. I just wanted to kind of know, you know, what I was up against in a way. So when I was signing up, I saw that there was an option to sign up as an age group athlete or as a professional athlete. And professional athlete, you need to have a license from your federation, a professional license. I'm Dutch, so my federation should be Dutch, but I don't have a license from the Dutch Federation, and certainly not a pro license, because I'm not really a pro cyclist. I have a full-time job and all that. So, so then I texted somebody from Team Amani, from the organizers, asking, oh, if I sign up as age group or professional, does that influence the eligibility for prize money? Is the prize money for just the professionals? And then I got a response back a few days later, after a lot of internal deliberations had been made, saying that prize money was only for East African citizens and not for residents who are not citizen, but that prize money would apply for both age group and professional cyclists. And there I was like, I'm not doing this for the money, but this doesn't make sense to me, because you're changing the rules of the game after I asked about it.
True.
And also, if I'm in a race, I feel like, I want to have the same incentives as other people. I don't want to be there as sort of a token who is supposed to provide, sort of a target to chase, but who then isn't eligible for the awards. It's kind of like, that would be for me a weird situation to race. I feel like if I'm in a race, I want to be the same as everybody else. I'm not asking for a special treatment. I'm not asking for others to have a special treatment. I want to be the same as everybody else, and that we have sort of the same, motivation, and that we're competing for the same outcome or reward. And it felt like really they did this because they wanted to keep the prize money inside the team. And that they had nothing to worry about, because I was coming off 2 weeks of eating pizza and pasta and drinking wine in Europe, and I was not acclimated to the elevation, nothing of all that. So there was nothing to worry about. And like I said, I wasn't doing it for the money, but just that they changed the rules after I asked about it, and that they changed it to East African citizens, was really me being like, you know what? I'm not going to race this race, because I'm going to have a dark cloud above my head. I'm going to be angry, and I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to ride aggressively. I'm going to hit a rock, and I'm going to crash, and that's just not worth it. So that was the Hell's Gate story.
Wow. So, and maybe how do you feel about the prize monies that the Kenyan cyclists, because I know prize money will depend on the registrations and maybe the turnout. So what do you think about the distributions of the prize money now that you've always been at the top? Like how have you been seeing the prize money with time? And
So I think it's good that there's prize money here in Kenya. Like, I think in the US, in Europe, typically there's no prize money in sort of cycling races where anybody can sign up. But here, because it's a closer, a smaller community, I guess it's possible. And I think it's good that there's prize money, because people spend money going to races. Like, I'm not doing it for the money, but if you're sort of on the lower income end, and there's a lot of people who do try and make money out of cycling, then it's important that your costs of getting to the race, and maybe even some of the costs that you spend on equipment, that you get that sort of back in prize money. I do think that often when there's like more men registering than women registering, prize money for men will be higher, and not just in terms of sort of that more people get prize money, but also that the number one gets a higher amount than the number one of women. And so I wish that sort of they would have equal prize money for men and women. I understand that, you may want to give prize money to the top 5 men and maybe to the top 2 women if there's very few women signing up. If there's 2 women signing up, then you don't have to give prize money to like the top 2 women, maybe to just the number 1 woman. But I wish that sort of, at least for the rankings, prize money would be the same, even if it's not kind of rolling down as deep into the field.
That's a wonderful take, because maybe lastly you can talk about I don't know if it's right to ask this, but I'll just give it my view. Because we've always seen when experts come into Kenya, they always want to be involved in some community stuffs. Like you've talked about coming into the races. I know paying that registration money helps in organizing maybe future races. So you personally, have you taken part or taking part in any community development stuff based on cycling that are there to help maybe the ladies, girls, maybe women in cycling?
So I haven't done anything like too formally, nothing through like any organizations. I did have a race soon after the Hell's Gate one, where this was organized by Kenyan riders. I won the main category, but also I was veteran because I have just turned 40. And so I won both like the main elite and the veteran prize money. And I really appreciate, I really kudos to the organization and to Karen from Kenyan Riders for doing that. I definitely appreciated that. But I was like, I should not be walking away with 2 prize purses. And so then I spoke to Kieran and said, hey, what if I donate my veteran prize money to the girls that are training with Kenyan riders? And so then he was like, that's a good idea, but we should make them work for it. And I love that idea, So we organized a race. Well, he organized a race and sent me footage. It was just a little training race for them on the mountain bike.
Okay.
Then in that way we kind of distributed the prize money, and there was like a prize purse for the elite girls and for the I think it was the under 21 that we had a prize, just the top 2 in both.
Wow.
So that was a small thing, where I'm like, I'm not doing this for the money. I know that it can go a long way for others. So that's one. I do try and, when people ask me questions, I have a lot of people asking me questions, for instance, over Instagram, on their training or if they have challenges, and especially as women in cycling, I do want to help out. I gave a talk at the Team Amani camp earlier in this year, the development camp, where I spoke about women in cycling and some of the specific things that I have been learning through the triathlon community, because women are not just sort of little men. Our biology is very different. And performance depends on where you are in your cycle and those kinds of things. So I try and do this mostly through knowledge sharing, rather than having really like the typical expat thing that I start a foundation or an organization. And I feel like I'm part of this community, so I don't have to start something separately.
Interesting. Then lastly, you've talked about the ladies or the girls in cycling. I saw you at the Grand Nairobi. You're doing most of the work. I was like, wow, you must be so strong to be pulling all these girls with you. How was the experience?
So that was a bit of a dark day. I got really upset because in the first few laps, if I tried getting off the front, some of the girls would just stop pedaling, and it's like, can you make it any more obvious that you're trying to be strategic and saving your legs? Like. At least take a pull for like a little bit. Like we are all in this together. So I feel that was really upsetting. And then I feel like we could have actually, if we had worked together, we could have had a much higher pace. And what was happening in the last lap, as we were at the final turnaround point, the men's peloton was right behind us. And I didn't want it to happen that the girls would finish in like the big peloton. And so I stomped on the pedals and I was like, they're all gonna hang in my wheel. I know that I'm gonna like do this final pull and that I'm not gonna have the legs for the final sprint, but I don't want us to get caught in this peloton and that then, women's cycling is yet sort of under the carpet again. So I pushed really hard. I gave it my all that last sort of, I think it's 8 kilometers. I really, really pushed, and it was so upsetting that then like 2 girls went around me in the last 100 meters
Yeah.
and were posting and talking about how hard they had worked for it, even though like they didn't want to do much of the pulling, would
Yeah.
stop pedaling if
Yeah.
I would try and come off the top.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was really upsetting. And I hope that this will change, because I think this is important. Like, I'm not a pro cyclist.
Yeah.
I'm training
True.
for triathlons.
Yeah.
I happen to be a strong cyclist, but I'm not doing road cycling specific training. Like, I'm not doing the over-under sessions that cyclists for road races should be doing, you know,
Yeah.
like I'm never training for sprinting. I don't even know what sessions I need to do in order to prepare for like
a
a finish
sprint.
sprint. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'd love somebody to train me over the winter because I want to up my sprinting skills. But I'm not training for these things. So they shouldn't set me as the bar and be happy if they, you know, finish ahead of me.
Yeah.
They should set Marianne Vos, you know, all the international
Yeah.
female cyclists.
Yeah.
That should be the bar. That should be what they aspire to be. Not
Yeah.
to be like me, because I'm just a triathlete who happens to be a strong cyclist and, you know, likes doing road races. But I like road races the most when I'm doing them in TT style, because that's what I train for.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I should not be the bar. And I really hope that that is going to change. That maybe if now, you know, I haven't been winning everything this year, that maybe there's a realization, okay, Berber is indeed not the bar. We need to aim much higher. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, because at the Bunyala climb, in all the videos I recorded, you're the one pulling. In all laps, I was like, no one is helping you, or
No.
you've decided to help the team, maybe? Yeah.
It wasn't by choice. It was
Ah.
just that, like, if I would come off top,
Yeah.
we'd come almost to a standstill.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we've come to an end of this wonderful podcast. Thank you so much for availing your time. In fact, you came cycling, which makes it even
Thanks for
more
having me.
better.
Uh-huh.
Before when you close, I have a question maybe you've not asked.
Uh-huh.
So what do you have installed for the future as you've turned 40 in terms of your athletic
Yes.
career?
That's what are my plans for the future?
Yeah.
So I've turned 40. This has been a big year. I have one more race in New Zealand. Well, I have a few more races. This weekend, the triathlon in Shuja, Indiana.
Diani.
Next weekend, the Caggiato time trial.
Yes.
The week
And,
after that, I have the half Ironman World Championship in New Zealand. I have honestly, because this has been such a long season,
Yeah.
I have not thought further on 2025. I have 2 races, I think, that I'm signed up for, or maybe 3 races that I'm signed up for, just because deadlines were approaching and I needed to sign up for them if I wanted to do them. But I don't know if I'm doing Ironman World Champs in Kona. I don't know if I want to. Well, actually, I have. Now that I think about it, I actually have 4 races that I
races,
signed
yeah.
up for, because I'm signed up for the half Ironman World Championship. I'm signed up for
Shuja.
Challenge Rough, which is like a really, really big triathlon in Germany. There, the cool thing is if I go below 10 hours, I get my registration for free.
Yeah.
Then I have a triathlon near my coach's town. She has managed to get me signed up in the elite field. So I'm actually like eligible for prize money. And then there's one triathlon and a half Ironman the weekend before.
Yeah.
So those are the 4 races that I have. Because I have those 4, I haven't been thinking much more about what I want to do next year. And I just want to get through this year, take a break, 2 weeks of just no training, not thinking about performance, you know, not feeling like I have to run, just hiking. I want to climb Mount Satima, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Go on sort of ridiculously long gravel rides where I'm gone for the entire day and get back and sort of, you know, want to attack the fridge just because I'm so hungry, because I've just been playing out in the dirt so long. So those kinds of things. And then maybe that's going to be like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, maybe even a month. And then only after that, I'm going to say, okay, what's now, because I need that break, I think, for me to say this is what I want to achieve next year. Yeah,
Okay.
just need to pause a little bit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions from
Our video.
With your permission,
Uh-huh.
I'd love to know, since you have a calendar year that has so many activities, so how do you finance all these activities? Do you do it out of pocket or do you have sponsors? And two, for any girl there outside like trying to start up cycling and considering how it's expensive, it's a quite an expensive sport. What would be your advice to such a someone who's eyeing to be a cyclist such as you?
Those are great questions. So yeah, right now I don't have any other sponsorships other than Zuzu Bike Shop. But that is not a sponsorship that, gets me free bikes or, free equipment. No, Zuzu signs me up for races usually, so that's our deal. Yeah, and not for the international races. I pay for those out of pocket. So most of it now I pay for out of pocket. It's also why, balancing sports with work is so important for me, because work is what's paying for the sport.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually do have some exciting stuff coming up next year. I'm joining a triathlon team that has sort of competitive triathletes united from my home area, from where I was born, from a province in the Netherlands where I'm from. And through them we have a number of sponsorships. So that might help me in getting, for instance, free shoes, getting some discounts on bike equipment and so on. But that's because I'm joining the team, and the team has arranged a number of sponsorships. So we'll see how that goes. Also through my current coach, I have a number of discount codes if I want to buy, for instance, helmets and those kinds of things. For somebody who wants to get into cycling, it can be expensive, but I also think, you don't have to always necessarily start with the latest, the greatest. I started with a second-hand road bike, and I still have that bike in the Netherlands, and I still ride it when I'm visiting my family. It's not a great bike. When I'm on that bike, I really realize how nice, my other bikes are. But it also makes me realize, this is what I started on, and I was just fine. I think, investing in a good bike fit, making sure that you're safe and that you have a new helmet, that can already get you really, really far. And you don't need to have a brand new bike. You don't need to have brand new wheels. You don't need to have, the fanciest tires. First, see if you like cycling, if you enjoy it, if it's something you want to keep doing, and then slowly over time start making those upgrades. And maybe also, if you're good at it, people might start spotting you. And I think definitely for girls here locally in Kenya, there might be sponsorship opportunities. We see that with some of the girls from the Kenyan riders. We see that with someone like Kate Carries, who's very active on social media. For them, the sponsorship opportunities, I think, kind of just naturally evolved. So I would say just take it step by step. Don't buy, that brand new giant that you see in the store right away. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's quite some good motivation and advice to those aspiring to be proper. She has said she's not pro, but proper cyclists, triathletes like Berber. So thanks so much.
Just to add to that, I think a lot of it is, not the equipment, but your own training and consistency and discipline. My husband always says it's the engine, not the bike. So I think that's really good to keep in mind. Like if you have strong legs, no matter what bike you ride, you will have a good result. So keep that in mind, and it really is consistency in training, smart training. You know, and if people have questions, feel free to reach out to me. I think one of the first things that I often see people doing wrong is just thinking, I need to log as many miles as possible. But you want to be smart about your training, and you don't actually have to train hours and hours and hours every week. You can be smart about it. So yeah, but on that note, it's not the bike but the engine. Except like my TT bike, my old TT bike, Zorro. He will be coming back to Nairobi. He's in the US right now. When he's back in Nairobi, end of December, he will be for sale. And with that bike, it is the bike, not the engine.
Okay. So, unfortunate for Zorro, he got a replacement. So yeah, Mirai is now the talk of the town. So thanks so much for coming, Baba. I appreciate your call for coming to Wafinyi Podcasts, and we hope to see you at the gala if you'll be around.
I'll be in New Zealand, unfortunately.
I'll be there to pick up your prize. So don't worry. Okay. Thank you so much, and thank you guys, and see you on our next episode.
And keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.